Biblical sin. Yes, this topic is closely related to what we'll be seeing today. The temple at Dendera contains many important messages. Its name can be interpreted as "from the end of time." Why the end of time? This is a very ancient story mentioned in the Bible. The end of the world of angelic beings, the rise of the serpent's reign, and the world's descent into chaos. However, this event did not go as smoothly, and thanks to modern technology, we can see its consequences on Google Earth today. A global flood, petrification, and intense heat ravaged the Earth beyond recognition. After all, I've already dedicated many videos to this topic, but we'll definitely come back to it in time. The devastating consequences of this global catastrophe are visible in every corner of the world. This is because, as I have already explained in previous videos, the biblical flood is most likely the same as the sinking of Atlantis, which has yet to be found. We cannot find it because we constantly focus on a small segment of history and territory, but its biblical dimensions are beyond our imagination. We are still living on the ruins of Atlantis, and all of this is clearly visible on Google Earth. Dendera is very important to our research, and since high-quality videos and photos unfortunately don't come for free, I hope you'll excuse the watermark in the video. The Dendera connection refers to the legacy of Atlantis's destruction and its consequences, which persist to this day. The temple at Dendera features magnificent, colorful decorations. Although we cannot understand everything, there are still enough clues to help us make further progress in our investigation. Take a look at this relief, for example. I'll slow down the video. There are two figures here. This one takes the form of a lion with horns on its head. And as we have already seen, in mysticism, the lion is represented as the sun. The horns belong to the dragon that held the sun in its mouth. The lion and the serpent interact with each other. However, in this case, it is not the sun, because we can see the sun above his head. This is a spiritual depiction of a woman sitting on a serpent or a dragon, with the sun above her head. The serpent, the woman, and the sun work together, and as the Bible says, the woman is of the line of the lion. The Bible doesn't actually mention a woman of the lion's lineage, but a lamb of the lion's lineage, and that's the second character. The second figure takes the form of a ram, with ram's horns and dragon's horns on its head. It is another representation of the woman with the sun above her head, and the fact that she is actually a woman is symbolized by the ram's form. We have already discussed the differences between a goat and a ram in relation to the human reproductive system. While the male internal reproductive system can be compared to a goat, the female system resembles a ram's head. Inside is the Holy Grail, that is, the womb. Every human being depicted as an avatar of the ram is therefore a woman. Here we see Mother Earth depicted as a female hippopotamus with the sun above her head. In her hand, she holds the cross of life, which is another representation of the female womb. Behind her, she leaves a trail of fully bloomed lotus flowers, symbolizing human embryos. We see the head of a bull as a symbol of life force and vitality. Mother Hippo stands on a pedestal, probably Mother Earth in a square pool. We will see her many more times in different forms: Isis, Inanna, Nut, Hathor, Eve. She has many names in different cultures, but they all refer to Mother Earth. Mother Earth in the form of a lamb. She lies on a square pedestal with a Bible under her head. On her back is the Holy Grail, above which hovers a radiant human orb. The square pedestal is sometimes depicted as a grate, which is also correct, because the grate represents the ruins of the global support network for the stone slabs. Atlantis was literally built on water. These remnants of Earth's global support network can be seen in many places today, such as lithium mines. They often have very unusual shapes and, because they cannot be removed, serve primarily as transportation routes. A lamb on a square pedestal, pouring its blood into the Holy Grail, the womb. It is an biblical analogy for the transformation of wine into blood. But I don't know why this holiday called Passover came about. A lamb on a spit. I don't know about you, but it strikes me as a bit ominous. But maybe that's because people used to take the biblical texts literally. We can understand fragments of the Earth's grid in the present day because they're only visible from a great height. The ancient Incas also knew Mother Earth. When the first Christians arrived in Peru from Europe, they adapted Pachamama to resemble the Virgin Mary. This is no coincidence. The Virgin Mary is a modern-day icon of Mother Earth. Yet, in their blind faith, Christians threw her into the Tiber River at the Vatican. Let's go back to Dendera. It's time to take a closer look at the history of the Temple of Hathor. The temple is one of the best preserved ancient Egyptian temple complexes and is dedicated to the goddess Hathor, who was the Egyptian goddess of love, music, joy, and motherhood. It dates back to the Ptolemaic period and is unique for its well-preserved ceilings, reliefs, and famous zodiac. However, only the upper part of the temple, known for its rich, colorful decoration, dates back to the Ptolemaic period. The lower part and the section below ground level are part of a much older temple upon which the new temple was built, and they have retained their original form to this day. The temple complex is vast, and the reconstructions carried out during the Ptolemaic period date back over 2,000 years. The history of the foundations of the original temple complex goes back much further. Hathor's temple originally housed the famous Dendera zodiac, but this relief was removed by Napoleon's soldiers, and the original is now housed in the Louvre. The Egyptian government is demanding its return. We will return to this zodiac later because it appears to correlate with the Earth's precession. In the temple frescoes, we can see many figures with both human and animal features, many of whom are sitting in what appear to be small boats. These boats have lotus flowers at both ends, and personally, I don't think they are actual boats, but rather a kind of cradle. The temple ceiling is decorated with numerous winged serpents, scarabs, and sun discs. The so-called all-seeing eye, which we often see today in Masonic illustrations at the top of a pyramid, is depicted here as a round mirror on a stand, but it is also a sun disk in the mouth of a snake. The concept of the all-seeing eye in a mirror is also reflected in the so-called Aztec mirror, which is shaped like a black, circular obsidian stone set into a fork resembling a serpent's mouth. And here is perhaps the most important topic of our video, the Dendera light bulb. The Dendera light bulb is carved into the wall of a small underground crypt at the rear of the temple. It is very interesting and controversial that so-called mystery enthusiasts or conspiracy theorists claim it is a depiction of an electric light bulb, while Egyptologists interpret the relief as a mythological scene. What is this about? To take a closer look at this, I need to find some decent quality photos. According to Egyptologists, specifically those outside the mainstream of Egyptology, the bulb represents a protective cocoon or womb surrounding the god. The writhing snake inside the bulb is the serpent Harsamtis emerging from a lotus flower, a symbol of rebirth and the morning sun. The supporting Djed pillar, a symbol of stability, and the spine of the god Osiris associated with the lotus, is mistakenly regarded as a cable by alternative proponents. The figure holding his hands aloft beneath the light bulb is He, the god of air. If that's what Egyptologists say, then why is there a replica of a light bulb in the Cairo Museum? I don't want to shock anyone with this statement, but there's one thing I'm absolutely certain of. Every human being, without exception, comes into the world this way. The serpent inside represents the physical part of our body, and it is essentially each of us. Something is wrong here, and it wasn't like this at the beginning of human existence on Earth. This is a consequence of the so-called biblical sin, and we're going to take a closer look at it. Some people see light bulbs here, but does anyone know why the light bulb on the left is being held up by a biblical woman with the sun above her head, who is sitting on a square pedestal? Glass production during the Ptolemaic period was still in its infancy, and there was no such thing as blown glass. When we consider that we need two voltage sources, positive and negative, as well as an inert gas to prevent the metal filament from igniting or melting, none of these existed more than 2,000 years ago. It's also worth noting that if the Egyptians carved something like this into stone to last thousands of years, it had to be something much more important than a light bulb. No shards, no lamp holders, none of that has ever been found. So we see two oval flasks with a snake inside, and this entire motif depicts a specific situation. Each of these flasks is associated with a lotus flower. Both lotuses have stems. The lotus on the left is associated with the pedestal of Mother Earth, that is, with the woman with the sun above her head. And as we have already explained, the lotus flower represents the developmental stage of a human being approximately 2 weeks after conception. There is another kneeling woman here who represents all future mothers, because mitochondrial DNA is passed down only from mother to daughter, and this DNA is circular and carries its own genetic information. We have already explained this in connection with the strange flowers in Voynich's manuscript. The lotus stem on the right, on the other hand, is attached to the foot of the large figure on the right. Since this is the male part of the story, I believe that the figure on the left represents the sun, and the figure on the right represents the dragon, the biblical serpent. Beneath the flask, which effectively represents the womb containing a human fetus, sits a man. This is symbolic of all future fathers. The flask is supported by an erect phallus, and as we have already explained, in Egyptian mythology, the Ankh is a symbol of women, while the Djed is a symbol of men. So let's recap. We're looking at the roles of women and men in life. Here, they are separated. On the left is a womb containing a human fetus that has developed from a lotus flower, which is incorrect. And next time, we'll discuss why. The lotus flower is associated with Mother Earth, represented by the biblical woman with the sun above her head. She passes on mitochondrial DNA to all female descendants, and in this part of the fresco, she works together with the large figure on the left, who represents the sun god Ra. His rays, as we can see in some frescoes, also send a kind of keys to life down to earth. The key to the life of the sun Ra, and the key to the life of Mother Earth? Could these be the two keys of the Vatican? On the right, the male side, the same womb with a snake is attached to a lotus flower, but its stem is connected to the foot of a large figure, which most likely represents the human form of the snake. The kneeling man represents all descendants in the male line. The Djed, an erect penis, supports the womb. So this is a sort of diagram of how women and men function, but how do they work together? That is why there is another fresco that depicts this very nicely. And here is a second illustration showing how the whole dynamic between a man and a woman works. Once again, we see a depiction of a woman's womb with a snake inside, emerging from a lotus flower. The stem of the lotus flower is attached to a square base of Mother Earth. In this case, we can think of it as Isis with the sun above her head. The female uterus is supported by the penis, and notice that the penis is touching the snake inside this time. This is an analogy to conception, and just as a woman, in partnership with the sun, passes on mitochondrial DNA to her offspring, I believe that a man, with the energy of the serpent, simultaneously passes on a material form to his offspring. A kind of alter ego or avatar, if you will. Is it complicated? It should be noted, however, that although both women and men inherit mitochondria from their mothers, the male portion of the mitochondria contained in the sperm is lost upon fertilization of the egg, and the embryo retains only the maternal mitochondria. Only women in the maternal line are able to pass this DNA on, but let's move on. Note also that in the previous diagram, where the male and female figures were separated, the penis does not touch the snake. This fact only confirms that this fresco depicts the situation after fertilization. To the left of Jed sits another woman, and judging by her hairstyle, we can assume she is a larger version of Isis. We'll take a look at the figure of Isis holding a large phallus in an Egyptian fresco sometime in the future. Seated next to Isis is a couple, a man and a woman. Since we are discussing conception here, I am also referring to a man and a woman, even though the woman's features are not very distinct. A woman and a man are like two halves of the same apple. In this relief, we see only one large figure on the left. I believe it may represent the personification of the biblical serpent, since we are currently living in a period of the serpent's reign that has lasted for many thousands of years. A strange creature has appeared on the right. Notice that it has a human body, but the tail belongs to a monkey and the head to a fish. It is holding knives in its hands. This is very interesting because it suggests that, in the distant past, human DNA may have been altered by the addition of an animal gene. Today, precision molecular scissors are used to cut DNA. They can cut DNA at a predetermined location, allowing the removal or replacement of a damaged gene. This method is called CRISPR/Cas9. Are these DNA scissors also the knives of this creature? But perhaps to your surprise, this is not the only evidence of genetic manipulation found in Egyptian frescoes. DNA splicing, sperm manipulation, and the like. These are certainly not part of the fame of Egyptian rulers. Before we say goodbye, let's take a look inside the Cairo Museum. I've never actually been to this museum myself, but judging by the photo, I'd guess that the light bulb was made from a plastic cover. The jed pillar supports the serpent, which is powered by clay batteries, but we don't see any in the fresco. But where is the woman with the sun above her head? If you look closely, the light bulb glows quite dimly, so it doesn't produce much light. It's just a mock-up, nothing more. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I promise we'll delve even deeper next time. Until then, have a nice, sunny days.